The security guard had already taken Ethan Mercer's access badge when Rebecca Shaw stepped through the factory doors. Ethan stood beside the turnstile with his battered blue lunchbox in one hand and a cardboard box of desk belongings in the other. Behind him, a red light flashed over Line 4, where 200 newly assembled heating units waited for final inspection. Rebecca looked at Ethan, then at the security guard, then at the termination envelope tucked beneath Ethan's arm. Her expression changed. Who fired him? Nobody answered. Nathan Strickland appeared 20 feet away, moving fast enough that the polished shoes beneath his charcoal suit almost slipped on the concrete. I did, he said. Rebecca's eyes stayed on Ethan. And why, she asked quietly, is the man who identified the thermal control defect in Line 4 being escorted out of my company? That was when Ethan finally looked up. He had spent 18 months making sure Rebecca Shaw barely knew his name. Now the entire factory floor seemed to be listening. Nathan stopped beside them. Because he refused a direct instruction, bypassed his supervisor, interrupted production without authorization, and accused senior management of manipulating quality data. Ethan shifted the cardboard box against his hip. All true, he said. Nathan stared at him. You see? Rebecca did not. What direct instruction? To release the production batch. Rebecca glanced toward the red light. The 1,700 units being held. 1784, Ethan corrected. Nathan exhaled sharply. Rebecca caught the correction. She had learned something in 23 years of running companies. People who lied usually rounded numbers. People who had lived with a problem remembered them precisely. She turned to Ethan. Why did you stop them? Because 6 control modules failed stress testing. 6 out of 1,700? 6 out of 84 tested. Nathan stepped in. Which is still below the contractual rejection threshold after retesting. Ethan looked at him. No. 6 failed under conditions the customer will actually use them in. They passed when the test duration was shortened. Rebecca's face tightened. Who shortened it? No one spoke. Across the production floor, machines continued humming, but several employees had stopped pretending not to watch. Nathan lowered his voice. Rebecca, this is not the place. Ethan gave a humorless smile. That's what everybody said yesterday, too. Rebecca held out her hand. Your badge. The security guard hesitated before placing Ethan's badge in her palm. Rebecca handed it back to Ethan. You're not leaving yet. Nathan's jaw hardened. He has already been terminated. Then for the next hour, Rebecca said, consider him an extremely inconvenient visitor. She looked at Ethan. Conference room. Ethan didn't move. Rebecca waited. I need to pick up my daughter at 4, he said. For the first time, something like surprise crossed her face. Nathan almost laughed. You've just been given an opportunity to explain yourself to the chief executive officer. I know who she is. And you're worried about school pickup? Yes. Rebecca studied him. What time do you need to leave? 3:35. She checked her watch. Then, I have 53 minutes. Ethan picked up his lunchbox. Make it 50. Rebecca turned toward the administrative corridor. Nathan followed. So did Ethan. And none of them noticed that Rosa Delgado, a line inspector who had watched the exchange from 20 yards away, was smiling for the first time in 3 days. The blue lunchbox had been Gracie's idea. Ethan's daughter had given it to him on his first morning at Halcyon. It was cheap metal, slightly too small, with a crooked white star she had painted on the lid. You'll forget to eat, she had told him. I'm 40 years old. That doesn't mean you remember things. She had been 9 then. She was 11 now, and far more dangerous in arguments. Ethan carried the lunchbox into Rebecca's conference room and placed it beside a polished mahogany table that looked expensive enough to make Coffee nervous. Nathan closed the door. Rebecca remained standing. Start at the beginning. Nathan did. That irritated Ethan, but did not surprise him. Nathan described missed targets, customer penalties, supplier shortages, overtime costs, and a production schedule that had fallen 8 days behind. He described Ethan as technically capable, but increasingly insubordinate. He has challenged supervisors publicly, Nathan said. He has rejected approved procedures, contacted engineering without going through his manager, and yesterday shut down testing for 27 minutes. 31, Ethan said. Nathan turned toward him. Do you enjoy correcting people? No. You seem to. I enjoy accurate numbers. Rebecca raised one hand. Nathan stopped. She looked at Ethan. Your version. Ethan opened the cardboard box. Inside were 3 pens, a framed photograph of Grace, an old notebook, a mug with a chipped handle, and a stack of printed reports. He removed the reports. The production delay is real, he said. Nathan's right about that. Nathan seemed almost disappointed. Ethan continued. But the delay isn't coming primarily from worker output. It's coming from rework. He slid a page across the table. Rebecca read the first few lines. Where did you get this? Maintenance logs, inspection reports, return component records. You had access to all of these? Anyone on my team does, Nathan said, which does not authorize him to conduct independent corporate analysis. Ethan ignored him. 3 months ago, Line 4 began missing targets. Management responded by shortening setup windows and increasing hourly quotas. That raised reported output. Rebecca looked at the chart. For 2 weeks. Yes. Then defects increased. Yes. And rework increased. Yes. And because rework units are counted again when they return to the line, our gross production number looks better than our actual completed unit number. Rebecca leaned back. Nathan crossed his arms. This has been reviewed. Ethan turned another page. Not this. The chart contained 4 columns. Rebecca studied them. The final column was labeled actual first pass yield. Her expression changed. How bad? If the test data is accurate, Line 4 is producing usable first pass units 12% below what is being reported. Nathan said. That number is theoretical. It's arithmetic. It is based on assumptions. It's based on units moving backward through the plant. Nathan's voice sharpened. Do you understand what happens if we stop production every time an employee thinks he has discovered a pattern? Ethan finally looked directly at him. Yes. What? What? We investigate the pattern before customers discover it for us. Silence. Rebecca flipped through several pages. She stopped. Who told testing to reduce the heat cycle duration? Nathan didn't answer immediately. That decision came through operation. Oh. Vice President level. Name. Martin Kessler. Did you approve it? Nathan's face remained controlled. I approved a temporary efficiency protocol within engineering tolerance. Ethan's eyes lowered. Rebecca noticed. What? Ethan said nothing. Mr. Mercer, the tolerance changed. Nathan hit the table with the heel of his hand. That is enough. Rebecca did not even glance at him. What do you mean it changed? Ethan opened his notebook. The official engineering sheet requires 45 minutes at peak thermal load. 3 weeks ago, the floor copy was replaced with one requiring 28. Rebecca stared at him. Do you have the original? No. Nathan gave a short laugh. Of course he doesn't. But Rosa does. Nathan's smile vanished. Rosa Delgado. Inspection. I know who she is. She photographed it because she thought she was reading it wrong. Rebecca stood. Bring her in. Nathan stepped forward. Rebecca. Bring her in. She has already received a disciplinary warning for. Rebecca turned. For what? Nathan stopped. Ethan looked at him. That was the moment Rebecca understood the problem might be larger than one defective batch. Rosa arrived 7 minutes later. She entered as though she expected to be fired before sitting down. She was 56, with gray beginning at the temples and the careful posture of someone who had learned never to occupy more room than necessary. Rebecca introduced herself. Rosa gave a nervous smile. I know. Mr. Mercer says you photographed an engineering document. Rosa glanced at Nathan. Ethan noticed. So did Rebecca. You can look at me, Rebecca said. Rosa did. Do you have the photograph? Yes. May I see it? Rosa removed her phone. Nathan interrupted. Before we turn this into a trial, I want it clearly noted that employees are prohibited from photographing proprietary. Rebecca looked at him. Then discipline her tomorrow. Today I want to know why she believed she needed evidence. Rosa's hand trembled slightly as she opened the image. Rebecca took the phone. The document clearly listed 45 minutes. When was this taken? February 12. And the current sheet? 28. Did you report it? To my supervisor. What happened? He said engineering. Approved it. Did you believe him? Rosa took a breath. No. Why? Because I worked here when we changed those controllers 4 years ago. 45 minutes wasn't arbitrary. Nathan leaned forward. Rosa is not an engineer. No, Ethan said. She has only inspected about 70,000 of them. Rebecca looked at him. That was the first time she almost smiled. Nathan did not. Rosa continued. I asked again. Then I was told I was slow in the line. What happened after that? I got written up. For questioning the test. For attitude. The room became very still. Rebecca placed the phone on the table. Nathan spoke before she could. You are hearing isolated complaints during the most difficult production quarter this plant has experienced in 12 years. And whose fault is the difficult quarter? Rebecca asked. Nathan looked at her. Everyone's. It was not the answer she expected. He walked toward the window, overlooking the factory floor. You want the truth? Fine. We lost the Emerson contract. Raw material costs rose 9%. 2 lenders are reviewing our covenants in October. If this facility misses the next 2 shipments, corporate finance will recommend consolidation. Rosa stared at him. Ethan already knew. Rebecca did too. But they had not expected Nathan to say it in front of Rosa. Consolidation? Rosa asked. Nathan turned. The board has alternatives under review. How many jobs? Rebecca spoke carefully. No decision has been made. Rosa looked from her to Nathan. How many? Nathan's jaw tightened. Potentially, most of this plant. Rosa sat back. Ethan watched something change in her face. Fear first. Then anger. Then calculation. She looked at the reports on the table. So that's why they kept telling us to move faster. Nathan's voice softened. Yes. You thought you were saving us. I ain't trying to. Rosa gave a small, bitter laugh. By making us afraid to tell you when something's wrong. Nobody answered. Nathan rubbed his forehead. For the first time since entering the room, he looked tired instead of powerful. My father lost his job when a textile mill closed in Indiana, he said. 600 people were told on a Thursday that Friday was their last day. I know what a plant closure does. Ethan's expression changed slightly. Nathan saw it. Do not mistake me for somebody who enjoys this. I don't, Ethan said. You've spent 3 months acting like I'm the enemy. No. I spent 3 months telling you the numbers were lying. I know the numbers. No, Ethan replied. You know the numbers that reach your office. Nathan's face hardened again. Rebecca looked between them. 2 men who disliked one another. 2 men who, she suddenly realized, might be afraid of the same thing. Losing people they believed they were protecting. Rebecca closed the folder. Line 4 remained stopped. Nathan began to object. For 6 hours, she added. Engineering runs the original stress protocol. We inspect the highest risk sample we can manage without compromising the shipment. She turned to Rosa. Your disciplinary warning is suspended, pending review. Then, Ethan. Your termination is suspended too. Ethan shook his head. No, T. Rebecca blinked. Nathan stared. No? You're investigating whether I was right. That's different from deciding I should still work here. You would rather remain fired. I'd rather you review everyone who was disciplined for raising quality concerns before you make me the special case because I happen to get your attention." Nathan looked at him like he had lost his mind. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. "You understand I'm trying to help you." "I do. And you're refusing. I'm asking you to be consistent." Rebecca glanced at the clock. 3:27. 3. Ethan began gathering his papers. She almost laughed from disbelief. "You're leaving." "I told you." 3:35. "Mr. Mercer, we are discussing whether you have a job." "My daughter doesn't care." Rosa covered a smile. Ethan picked up the lunchbox. Rebecca said, "Tomorrow, 7:30. I normally start at 6. You're currently fired." "Suspended." 7:30. He considered it. "Fine." Then he turned toward Nathan. "You should rerun line 2's pressure tests too." Nathan frowned. "Why?" "Because if I'm right about line 4, somebody used the same logic there." He walked out. At 3:38, Ethan pulled into the elementary school pickup lane. Grace climbed into his aging silver station wagon, dropped her backpack between her feet, and immediately looked at the cardboard box in the back seat. She turned slowly. "What happened?" Ethan kept his eyes on traffic. "Hello to you too, Dad." "Dad." "Hello, Grace. Why is your plant mug in a box?" "It's not a plant mug. It has the company logo." "You're avoiding my greeting. You're avoiding unemployment." Ethan sighed. Grace folded her arms. At 11, she had inherited her mother's eyes and his unfortunate patience for evidence. "I may have been fired." Her mouth opened. "May? It's complicated." "How can being fired be complicated?" "The CEO unfired me temporarily." Grace stared. "That is not a normal sentence." "No." "What did you do?" "Stopped a production line." "Were you allowed to?" "Technically." "That means no." "No." "Were you right?" "I think so." "Does she think so?" "She's checking." Grace nodded once. "Okay, Dush." That was it. Ethan glanced over. "You're not worried?" "Oh, I'm worried." "About money?" Grace gave him a look so sharp that Ethan almost laughed. "No, Dot." She knew. Not everything, but enough. She knew that the modest house they rented could have been a mansion. She knew there were accounts Ethan rarely discussed. She knew men in suits sometimes appeared twice a year and spoke to him about investments. She knew her father had built something before she was born and sold it for an amount she once described as cartoon money. But Ethan had never told her the total. He had never wanted the number to become part of her identity. "What are you worried about?" he asked. "That you like this job." He looked back at the road. Grace was right. That bothered him more than losing it. After Maya died, Ethan had spent almost a year pretending retirement was peace. He cooked. He drove Grace to school. He answered investment emails twice a week. He tried gardening and discovered that tomatoes did not care how efficiently he scheduled them. He bought a boat and sold it after using it 3 times. Friends congratulated him on finally having time. Ethan had never felt more useless. Halcyon had been different. Nobody there cared that he had once designed logistics software used across 3 continents. Nobody asked about valuation multiples. Nobody invited him to panels. His badge said, Process Technician 2, Todd Oi. He solved ordinary problems with people who knew things he didn't. When a conveyor jammed, Louis knew where to listen. When a heat sensor drifted, Rosa recognized the pattern before the diagnostic software did. When a new employee froze during a changeover, Ethan showed him the sequence instead of giving a speech. He had gone home tired. He had liked that. Grace opened the lunchbox. You didn't eat the apple. I had a difficult day. That is when humans especially require food. Thank you, doctor. You're welcome. She pulled out the apple and bit into it. Ethan looked at the chipped white star on the lid. Maya would have laughed. She had spent the final years of his first company telling him he was too good at solving problems nobody had asked him to solve. You walk into a room, she once said, And before people finish telling you what hurts, you've designed the machine that's going to fix them. He had thought it was a compliment. It wasn't. The next morning, Ethan arrived at Halcyon at 7:23. His badge still didn't work. Rebecca was waiting inside. "You're early?" "I dislike being late." "So do I." She handed him a visitor pass. "Nathan is furious." "I assumed." Engineering completed the stress test. Ethan waited. 14 failures. He looked down. "Out of?" 196. "Too high. Much too high." Rebecca continued. "Line 2 failed too." Ethan closed his eyes briefly. She watched him. "You don't look pleased." "Why would I?" "Because you were right. Being right about bad news isn't winning." That answer stayed with Rebecca longer than she expected. She led him upstairs. Inside the same conference room were Nathan, Rosa, the plant engineering director, chief financial officer Priya Desai, and 3 folders thick enough to ruin someone's morning. Rebecca took her seat. "We are quarantining both batches," Priya said. "That exposes us to a minimum $11 million shipment delay." Nathan stared at the table. Rebecca continued. "We are also restoring the original test protocols immediately and reviewing every modification made during the last 6 months." Nathan nodded. He no longer argued. Then Rebecca looked at Ethan. "Your termination is rescinded." Ethan waited. "Rosa's warning is removed. We have identified 4 additional quality-related disciplinary actions. All are under review." He nodded once. "Thank you." Nathan gave him a look. Rebecca noticed. That sounded remarkably ungrateful. "It wasn't. You nearly lost your job. And 5 people who never got invited into this room nearly lost theirs." Priya studied him with growing curiosity. Rebecca opened another folder. "There's something else." Ethan knew from her tone he wasn't going to like it. "For the past 8 months, I've been receiving process improvement summaries through our employee suggestion system." He said nothing. "Short documents, no executive language, specific numbers, suggested fixes." Nathan looked up. Rebecca slid 3 pages toward Ethan. He recognized them. "I asked HR who wrote them." Ethan's expression stayed neutral. "They were submitted anonymously," Nathan said. Rebecca nodded. "Except the upload history still exists." She looked directly at Ethan. "You wrote 17 of them." Rosa turned toward him. Priya's eyebrows rose. Nathan looked almost offended. Rebecca tapped the pages. "One reduced packaging waste by 6%. Ethan shrugged. "Lewis thought of half of it. Another changed our part staging system. Maintenance had already been doing it informally. And the third identified a scheduling pattern that saved approximately $1.8 million in overtime. That estimate is generous." Priya spoke for the first time. "It is not generous. I calculated it." Ethan looked at her. "Then your estimate is generous." Priya laughed. Nathan did not. "Why?" Rebecca leaned forward. "Why? Anonymous." Ethan took a moment. "Because suggestions should be judged on whether they work." That sounds noble. It's practical. It also prevents anyone from knowing what you're capable of. I'm employed to improve processes. You are employed as a process technician too. Yes. You have been doing work my strategy team should have noticed. That sounds like a conversation for your strategy team. Rebecca stared at him. You're difficult. I've heard that recently. Rosa laughed before she could stop herself. Even Nathan almost smiled. Rebecca didn't. Come with me. Where? Walk the trail. They crossed an elevated passage above the factory. Below them, workers restarted a packaging cell. Rebecca stopped at the glass. Do you know why I'm angry? Several possibilities. I'm angry because I had to discover one of the most useful analytical minds in this building, while security was escorting him out. Ethan looked below. That's not really about me. What is it about? You built a system where information becomes less honest. Every floor it travels upward. Rebecca's expression cooled. You've worked here 18 months and decided you understand the entire company? No. Shit. Good. D. I understand enough to know Rosa was scared to tell you the truth. That landed. Rebecca folded her arms. What would you do? It was a familiar question. For most of Ethan's adult life, people had eventually asked him that. Investors, executives, governments, founders, boards. He had once loved answering. Now he said, "Ask the people down there." Rebecca followed his gaze. "I'm asking you." "That's the problem." She turned toward him. "You have opinions about everything except your own value." Ethan's face changed. She saw it. Only for a second. Then it disappeared. Rebecca said, "I want you temporarily assigned to the plant recovery team." "No." "But why?" "My job is on the floor." "Your job almost disappeared yesterday." "Then improve how people on the floor are heard." "I am offering you influence." "I have influence." "No, you have suggestions." Ethan looked at her. "There's a difference. A very large one." He leaned against the railing. "Influence changes what people tell you. That is an excuse." "No, it's experience." She heard something beneath the answer. Before she could ask, Ethan looked at his watch. "My shift started 12 minutes ago." "You're on executive assignment." "I didn't agree to that." "You really are difficult." He headed toward the stairs. Rebecca called after him. 2 weeks. He stopped. "Join the recovery team for 2 weeks. If you hate it, go back to the floor." "What?" "Authority. Enough to ask questions. Not enough to order changes." She considered him. "You don't want authority?" "Not yet." Rebecca nodded. 2 weeks. Ethan looked down at the blue lunchbox in his hand. "Fine." Nathan was waiting for him downstairs. "I hope you're enjoying this." Ethan stopped. "No. You humiliated me. You shortened a safety test." Nathan's jaw tightened. "To a level engineering told me remained acceptable. And when employees challenged that, I believed they were reacting to change." "You disciplined them." "Yes." "Then that part belongs to you." Nathan looked away. For several seconds, neither spoke. Finally, Nathan said, "If this plant closes, you'll move on." Ethan said nothing. "You're smart. Rebecca likes you. Somebody will hire you." Nathan pointed through the windows toward the floor. "Some of those people are 58 years old, 59. Some never finished college. Some have mortgages in a town where Halcyon is the biggest private employer." "I know." "No, you don't." Ethan's voice changed. "You don't know what I know." Nathan stepped closer. "Then tell me." Ethan didn't. And Nathan smiled without humor. "That's what I thought." For the next 11 days, Ethan learned how close Halcyon was to failure. Not collapse. Failure. The distinction mattered. The company still had customers. Still had strong product. Still had factories full of people who knew how to build them. But Halcyon had accumulated thousands of small decisions designed to make the next quarter easier. Extra product variations. Emergency shipping. Duplicated warehouse space. Overtime used to compensate for poor scheduling. Managers hiding bad news because bad news made careers inconvenient. Workers improvising fixes no executive ever documented. The company was not dying from one dramatic mistake. It was bleeding through hundreds of small ones. Ethan spent mornings on the floor, afternoons with Priya. He asked supervisors what they would stop doing if nobody punished them for telling the truth. He asked operators which reports they believed were fiction. He asked maintenance technicians which machine they would replace if they had one blank check. He asked shipping clerks what sales promised customers without asking them. He listened. That part had not come naturally when he was younger. He had learned it too late. One afternoon, Rosa found him sitting beside a loading dock eating a turkey sandwich from the blue lunchbox. "Did I? You really bring that thing every day?" "My daughter monitors compliance." Rosa sat beside him. "Rebecca says they may close us." She said, They're reviewing options. That means yes, in executive. Sometimes. You think they will? Ethan took a bite. If nothing changes. How long? I don't know. That means you do. He looked at her. Rosa waited. 6 to 9 months before the decision becomes difficult to reverse. She nodded slowly. My husband retires next year. I know. How? You told me. Oh. She stared across the loading yard. My son keeps saying I should retire too. Says we'll manage. Would you? What? Retire. Rosa laughed. And do what? I don't know. Exactly. Ethan understood that. She picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. People think if you're older, all you want is rest. Sometimes people want usefulness. Rosa looked at him. You really are strange. So I've been told. She stood, then paused. You know what scares me? Losing the job. No, it done. He waited. Having people like Nathan decide what losing it is supposed to mean to me. Ethan looked up. Rosa tapped the lunchbox lid. If you're really helping Rebecca, tell her that. Then she walked away. That evening, Ethan found Grace at the kitchen table building a cardboard bridge for school. She had used enough glue to violate several engineering principles. How much weight does it need to hold, he asked. 5 pounds. That joint will fail. Grace kept working. Probably. You should triangulate here. No, IT. It would take 30 seconds. It's my bridge. I know. Done. You're doing the thing. Ethan froze. What thing? The thing Mom used to complain about. He stared. Grace had been 7 when Maya died. Too young, he had thought, to remember certain conversations. Apparently not. What thing? Grace imitated his voice. I'm not controlling you. I'm just explaining the statistically superior solution. I do not sound like that. You absolutely sound like that. He pulled out a chair. Do you want help? No. He sat anyway. Grace looked at him. That was not an invitation to supervise. I'm sitting. Suspiciously. Ethan smiled. She pushed a piece of cardboard toward him. You can cut these. He took the scissors. For 20 minutes, he did exactly what she asked. Nothing more. 2 days later, Priya entered the recovery room carrying a tablet. She looked pale. Rebecca noticed immediately. What? You? Priya locked the door. We have a financing problem. Nathan looked up. We already have a financing problem. No, we have a new one. She placed the tablet on the table. One of our lenders has sold part of our debt position. Rebecca's face tightened. To whom? A private investment vehicle. Nathan swore. Activist? I don't know. How much? Enough to complicate the October covenant negotiation. Rebecca stared at the screen. Who controls the vehicle? North Lake Capital Holdings. Nathan frowned. Never heard of it. Priya shook her head. It's private. Ethan had gone completely still. Priya noticed. Do you know them? No. The answer came too quickly. Rebecca turned. Ethan reached for his notebook. Rebecca's voice hardened. Ethan. He looked up. Do you know North Lake Capital? He took a breath. Yes. Nathan stood. How? Ethan looked at Priya. What percentage did they acquire? 8.6. He closed his eyes briefly. Rebecca saw it. How do you know them? They manage investments. Whose investments? Ethan said nothing. Nathan laughed once. Not because anything was funny. Of course. Rebecca stepped closer. Whose? Ethan's phone vibrated. He looked at the screen. A name appeared. David Len. Rebecca saw only the first name. Ethan declined the call. Mine. Dutchar. Nobody moved. Priya stared at him. What? North Lake manages some of my investments. Nathan's expression turned almost amused. Some. Rebecca's voice was very quiet. How much money are we talking about? Ethan picked up the blue lunchbox. That isn't relevant. Nathan laughed again. You own part of the debt of the company you work for, and you think that isn't relevant. I didn't know they bought it. You expect us to believe that? Yes. Rebecca's face had gone cold. Who are you? Ethan looked at her. Ethan Mercer. I know your name. Priya was typing. Then she stopped. Her eyes widened. She typed again. Ethan. He looked at her. Priya turned the tablet around. An old photograph filled the screen. Ethan was younger. 30, perhaps. No gray at his temples. No factory shirt. He stood on a stage beside the logo of Meridian System. The headline beneath the photograph referred to a multi-billion-dollar acquisition. Rosa, who had entered with a folder and caught only the final seconds, stared at the screen. Then, at Ethan. Priya whispered, You founded Meridian. Nathan's face went blank. Rebecca looked from the photograph to the quiet man holding a chipped blue lunchbox. How much was the sale? Ethan didn't answer. Priya did. 4.7 billion. Rosa sat down. Nathan stared at Ethan as though the laws of physics had changed. Rebecca did not look shocked anymore. She looked furious. You're a billionaire. Ethan rubbed his forehead. Technically. Nathan almost shouted. Technically. It's mostly invested. That is how billionaires work. Rosa covered her mouth. She might have laughed if Rebecca had not looked ready to throw someone through the glass wall. Rebecca stepped toward Ethan. You came into my company as an hourly employee, while an investment firm managing your money was capable of buying our debt. I didn't direct the purchase. That is not the question. No, Tuto. Were you studying us? No, Tuite. Planning to acquire us? No. Did you know we were financially vulnerable when you took this job? No, Tuite. Did you use an alias? No. Did you hide who you were? Ethan hesitated. Yes. Rebecca laughed once. Not pleasantly. Finally, he set down the lunchbox. I didn't lie on my employment documents. You omitted the fact that you built one of the most successful logistics companies of the last 20 years. There wasn't a box for that. Nathan muttered something under his breath. Rebecca pointed toward him. Not now. Nathan actually obeyed. She turned back. Why? Ethan looked at the old photograph. I wanted a job. You could buy the building. I didn't want a building. You could have run any company in America. I'd already done that. You could have consulted. I didn't want people paying for Ethan Mercer's name. What did you want? He looked through the glass, toward the plant. To be useful. Rebecca's anger flickered, then returned. You let me sit across from you for 2 weeks discussing whether 2,000 people could lose their jobs, while you had enough money to influence the company's lenders. Yes. Do you understand how manipulative that feels? Yes. Do you? Yes. Nathan leaned against the table. You've been judging every decision I made while knowing you could lose this job and never feel it. Ethan looked at him. That's fair. The room went quiet. Nathan had expected resistance. He didn't get it. Ethan continued. You were right when you said I could move on, more than you knew. Rosa looked hurt. That bothered Ethan most. You ate lunch with us, she said. I still eat lunch. That's not what I mean. He knew. You let us talk about mortgages. I listened. You let me worry about retirement while you... She gestured helplessly. While you had billions. Yes. Why didn't you say something? Because your fear was real whether I had money or not. But yours wasn't. Ethan went still. Rosa immediately regretted it. But she didn't take it back. My job mattered to me. That's not the same as needing it. No. Rebecca watched him. There it was. The first crack in the strange armor Ethan carried everywhere. Not shame about being rich. Shame about pretending the difference did not matter. He picked up the lunchbox. Rebecca said, Where are you going? Home. Bar. We are not finished. I think you should decide whether I'm still welcome on the recovery team, without me sitting here. Ethan, you asked who I was? He looked at her. Now you know enough to be angry. Then he walked out. Grace was waiting in the kitchen when he came home. She had his laptop open. Ethan stopped in the doorway. No, it. Grace turned the screen. His old photograph stared back at him. It's online. He closed his eyes. How? Somebody posted about you. Who? Well, I don't know. A Halcyon employee had apparently recognized the story after Priya's search. By 5:30, a local business reporter had called. By 6, 2 national outlets had emailed. By 7, a black SUV had parked across the street. Grace looked through the curtains. Are they reporters? Probably. This is annoying. Yes. Are we moving? The question struck him harder than anything Rebecca had said. No, but, home. You said that last time too. Ethan looked at her. Grace was 9 when a magazine published photographs of their house after Maya's death. A week later, Ethan moved them. Then again when someone photographed Grace leaving school. He had told himself he was protecting her. Maybe he had been. But she remembered the boxes. The goodbyes. The way adults changed when they discovered the number attached to her father. Ethan sat across from her. We are not moving because of this. What if it gets bad? Then we handle it. Together? He knew why she asked. He reached across the table. Together. Grace studied him. Did you get fired again? Unclear. That company sounds disorganized. He laughed despite himself. Rebecca called at 8:12. Ethan answered. Hello. That's you. You owe me more than hello. Probably. You're on the front page of 3 business websites. I noticed. North Lake contacted Priya. Ethan waited. They offered to freeze any additional debt purchases. I told David too. Rebecca was silent. You called him? Yes. Why? Because you should not have to wonder whether I'm positioning myself against you while we sort this out. She let out a slow breath. That helps. It doesn't fix it. No, maybe. Another pause. Then Rebecca said, Why Halcyon? Ethan leaned back. What? You could have taken an ordinary job anywhere. Why us? He looked at the bridge Grace had left on the kitchen counter. Maya bought one of your first countertop ovens. Rebecca said nothing. My wife, she loved it, complained about the timer for 12 years, but refused to replace it. Rebecca almost smiled. Sounds like our customers. After she died, I found it in a box when we moved. I repaired it. And that made you apply for a factory job. No. It made me curious how something could be ordinary enough to complain about and important enough to keep. Rebecca was quiet. I wanted to work somewhere that made physical things people lived with, not software, not investment models. And you thought hiding your background was necessary. I thought it was the only way to be treated normally. That might be true. He hadn't expected her to say that. Rebecca continued. But you made the choice for everyone else. Ethan looked toward Grace. She was pretending not to listen from the hallway. I know, Tort. You decided what we were allowed to know because you wanted a particular experience. Yes, that is a form of control. Maya's voice. Grace's cardboard bridge. Ethan closed his eyes. Yes. Rebecca waited. I need you back tomorrow. He opened his eyes. Why? Because being angry with you and needing your brain are not mutually exclusive. Rebecca, I didn't say I trust you. Fair? Why? I said I need you. What does Nathan think? That I've lost my mind. Rosa. A pause. She said, if you come back, you're buying lunch. Ethan almost smiled. For everyone? She was unclear. Dangerous. 7:30. He looked at the kitchen clock. 7. You're not on shift. I know. Dory died. 7:15. Fine. Me. When Ethan entered the recovery room the next morning, nobody pretended things were normal. Priya nodded. Nathan barely acknowledged him. Rosa pointed at the chair beside her. "You're sitting there." Ethan sat. She placed a cafeteria menu in front of him. "You're a billionaire." "So I've been told." "You're buying pie." "For the recovery team." "For inspection." "That's 43 people." 46. He looked at her. She raised an eyebrow. "Accurate numbers." Ethan laughed. The tension broke. Not completely, but enough. Rebecca entered. "Now that our compensation negotiations are finished, we have a larger problem." She put a projection on the wall. The board wanted alternatives. Close Halcyon's oldest plant and consolidate production. Sell the consumer heating division. Find outside capital. Or cut operating costs by enough to restore lender confidence within 90 days. Nathan spoke. "Closing this facility gives us the fastest savings." Rosa stared at him. Nathan raised a hand. "I said fastest, not best." Priya pointed to another number. "Selling the division may stabilize the balance sheet, but buyers will discount heavily because of the quality issue." Rebecca looked at Ethan. "You've been quiet." "I'm thinking." Nathan said, "Must be difficult with all those billions." Rosa sighed. "Nathan, no, if we're going to do this, I'm not pretending he's just another employee anymore." Ethan nodded. "You shouldn't." Nathan seemed thrown by the agreement. Ethan walked to the screen. "Give me 3 days." "For what?" Rebecca asked. "A fourth option." Nathan folded his arms. "And what does the billionaire magician pull from his hat?" "No money." That silenced him. Rebecca frowned. "You're not offering capital?" "No, Deutsch." "Why?" "Because if the business only works after someone rich writes a check, we haven't fixed the business." Priya nodded slowly. Nathan said, "And if 3 days proves there is no fourth option, then you'll know." Rebecca considered him. 3 days. Ethan worked 51 of the next 64 hours. Not alone. That was the part he forced himself to remember. Luis mapped machine downtime. Rosa gathered first-pass quality numbers. Priya rebuilt product profitability without internal accounting allocations that disguised weak lines. Shipping mapped emergency freight and more. Sales reluctantly admitted that 18% of custom configurations existed mainly because nobody wanted to tell old customers no don't die. Nathan joined the second night. Ethan looked up when he entered. "I thought you hated this plan." "I do." Nathan removed his jacket. "But if it fails, I want to understand why." For 4 hours they argued. Nathan wanted immediate reductions. Ethan wanted sequence. Nathan believed executives needed authority during crisis. Ethan believed authority had caused half the reporting problem. At midnight, Nathan tossed a marker onto the table. "You know what your problem is?" "Several possibilities." "You think being calm means you aren't arrogant?" Ethan leaned back. Nathan continued. "You don't raise your voice. You don't brag. You don't demand the big office." "Thank you." It wasn't a compliment. Ethan waited. "You still assume you're the smartest person in every room." Ethan's expression changed. Nathan pointed at the whiteboard. "You ask people questions until they give you the pieces. Then you disappear and build the answer yourself." "That's my job." "No, that's control with good manners." Ethan looked at him for a long time. Nathan picked up his jacket. "Good night." Ethan remained alone beside the whiteboard. On it were dozens of numbers. Labor hours, machine costs, SKU counts, training schedules, defect rates. For most of his career, Ethan had loved the moment when chaos became a system. But all he could hear was Nathan. Control with good manners. At 1:15 in the morning, Ethan erased the solution he had spent 6 hours building. The next day he put 12 chairs around the table. Not executives. Operators. Maintenance. Shipping. Quality. Supervisors. 1 engineer. 1 sales representative. Priya. B. Nathan. Rebecca entered and stopped. "What is this?" I don't know yet. Ethan stood at the whiteboard. We have 36 hours. Rosa sat. For what? To design something better than what I erased. Nathan looked at the blank board. You erased it. Yes. Was it good? Probably. Nathan laughed. Progress. They started again. The solution that emerged was harder than Ethan's. His original plan had been elegant. Automate 2. Assembly cells. Standardized products. Standardized product. Reduce headcount rapidly. Close one warehouse. Save enough to keep the plant. The new plan was messier. It still required automation. That was unavoidable. But Louis showed how maintenance employees could be retrained to operate and repair the new equipment. Rosa suggested phased implementation so older workers approaching retirement could choose voluntary packages rather than being abruptly displaced. Shipping demonstrated that one warehouse could close without layoffs if natural vacancies remained unfilled for 4 months. Sales agreed to eliminate 31 low-margin product variations if operations guaranteed faster delivery on the remaining models. Priya found executive expenses that could be suspended before hourly overtime was cut. Nathan proposed something nobody expected. My bonus. Rebecca looked at him. What? What? If we ask supervisors and workers to change schedules, eliminate overtime, and accept retraining, executive bonuses should be first. Priya said, that includes mine. Rebecca nodded. And mine. Ethan watched. Nathan looked at him. Yours is safe. Rosa said, he makes $12 more than my nephew. 17, Ethan corrected. Everyone laughed. The plan took shape. Then Priya found the problem. She stood at the table with a calculator. We're still short. How much? Rebecca asked. 38 million over 18 months. Silence. Nathan leaned back. Then we're done. Ethan studied the figures. No, the tie-in. Everyone turned. There's one more layer. He walked to the board. Halcyon's distribution network had always bothered him. Too many partial shipments. Too much inventory in the wrong places. Too many emergency transfers between warehouses. It was exactly the kind of problem Meridian had once solved. Ethan began drawing. Rebecca watched him. How much could it save? 25 to 40 million annually after implementation. Nathan stared. Then why haven't you suggested it before? Because Halcyon's software can't do it. Priya frowned. What can? Ethan stopped writing. Everyone knew before he answered. Mine. Dot. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. Meridian? Something newer. Nathan laughed softly. Of course you have newer software. It's a private project. How private? 6 people. Commercial. Not yet. Priya asked. What is it worth? I don't know. Nathan said. That means a horrifying amount. Ethan ignored him. Rebecca understood first. If Halcyon licenses it, the savings could close the gap. How much would licensing cost? Ethan didn't answer. Rebecca shook her head. No, Petit. Rosa looked between them. What? Rebecca kept watching Ethan. He's going to give it to us. License it, Ethan said. 8. What price? Operating cost. Nathan stared. You cannot do that. I own it. Rebecca said. That's exactly why you cannot casually do it. I'm not being casual. You said it isn't commercial yet. No, didn't he? What happens if it works here? Other companies will want it. And what could it become? I don't know. Guarantee. Ethan looked away. Priya said quietly. Hundreds of millions? He didn't respond. Nathan whistled. Rebecca stepped closer. You said no billionaire rescue. It isn't. You're giving us technology, below market value. I'm using something I built. That is still money in another form. Ethan looked around the room. It also saves the planet. Rosa spoke. And what happens to the people The automation replaces. Ethan paused. We retrain as many as possible. As many as possible. Yes. How many is that? He looked at the model. Probably 200. How many positions disappear? 312. Nobody spoke. Rosa nodded slowly. So 112 people lose. If we don't change anything, almost 2,000 may lose. I understand math. I know. Do you? Ethan looked at her. Rosa stood. You came here furious, because managers change tests without listening to us. Yes. Now you found a smarter machine, and suddenly, you're telling us which 112 people are acceptable casualties. That's not what I said. It's what the spreadsheet says. Nathan looked down. Rebecca said nothing. Ethan tried again. I'm trying to keep 1,700 jobs, and I'm asking about the 112. We can design severance. With your money, if necessary. Rosa shook her head. You still don't understand. What? You think because your answer hurts fewer people, you get to make the choice. Ethan's expression hardened. Somebody has to make it. Yes. Rosa walked toward the door. But maybe not somebody who can never be one of the 112. The door closed behind her. For a long moment, Ethan said nothing. Then Nathan stood. I'm going to say something I may regret. Go ahead, be okay. She's right. Ethan turned. Nathan continued. And so were you. About what? About me. But he looked toward the factory. I kept telling myself I was saving 2,000 jobs, so every smaller harm became acceptable. Shortened tests. Warnings. Pressure. In. Fear. Soon. Nathan looked at Ethan. Be careful. Then he left. That night, Ethan sat on the floor of Grace's bedroom while she reorganized a bookshelf. You look terrible, she said. Thank you. Did your company break? Maybe. Can you fix it? That question has become complicated. Grace placed a book on the shelf. What did you do? Why do you assume I did something? Your face. He smiled faintly. Then he told her. Not every financial number. Not every board detail. But enough. He explained that Halcyon could survive if it changed. He explained that some jobs would disappear. He explained that his technology could help. Grace listened. What are you asking me? I'm not. Yes, you are. He leaned against the bed. I don't know what the fair decision is. Grace frowned. Why are you deciding? He looked at her. What? There are 2,000 people there, right? Yes. Do they not vote? It's a company. So, that's not generally how companies work. Grace shrugged. I see. Maybe that's why your company is broken. He laughed. She returned to the shelf. I'm 11. Do not use my ideas for business. Too late. Grace pulled the blue lunchbox from beneath her desk. She had taken it 2 days earlier to repair the loose handle. She handed it to him. The white star was freshly repainted. You fixed it. Yes. I could have bought another. I know. Dorothy. Why didn't you? She gave him the expression children reserve for very slow adults. Because this one is mine. Ethan stared at the star. Something in him finally shifted. Not an answer. A direction. The next morning, Rebecca found Ethan waiting outside her office. I need the board meeting moved. To when? Friday. That's tomorrow. Yes. Why? I want a plant vote first. Rebecca stared. A what? Not a legal shareholder vote. An advisory vote. On layoffs. On the restructuring framework. You want employees to vote on whether to approve a plan that may eliminate some of their own positions. Yes. That could become chaos. Yes. The board will hate it. I know. Employees may reject it. I know. And then what? We deal with their answer. Rebecca studied him. This is because of Rosa. Rosa, Nathan, Grace, your daughter. Long story. Rebecca walked into her office. Ethan followed. She closed the door. What exactly are you proposing? He placed 3 pages on her desk. A phased restructuring. No involuntary job cuts for 90 days. Voluntary retirement and severance first. Guaranteed, company-funded retraining for every affected employee willing to qualify for an available new role. 2 worker representatives on the implementation committee. Independent publication of quality and safety metrics. Executive bonus suspension until operating targets recovered. His logistics technology licensed for 5 years at operating cost. And a financial backstop. Boris. Rebecca reached the final page. Her eyes stopped. What is this? A credit guarantee for $200 million. Up to. You said no billionaire rescue. It isn't unconditional. She looked up. What condition? The board cannot use it unless employees approve the restructuring framework and lenders agree not to force a plant closure during the implementation period. You're putting $200 million behind a vote you don't control. Yes. And if employees reject the plan? I walk away from the guarantee. And perhaps the plant closes. Yes. Rebecca stared at him. You could simply buy enough of the debt to control the outcome. I know. You could probably buy the company. Probably. Why not? Ethan looked through her office window. Because then, everybody survives according to my definition. Rebecca said nothing. I've done that before. With Meridian? With people. He thought of Maya. Of Grace. Of every room where he'd arrived with an answer before anyone finished speaking. I'm good at solving systems, he said. Sometimes I forget people aren't systems. Rebecca sat back. If we do this, the press will find out. They already know enough. No, they know the billionaire story. They don't know you're putting your technology and capital into Halcyon. I know. That will become the story. Then we make sure the workers are part of it. Rebecca smiled faintly. You have become strangely democratic for a billionaire. I'm experimenting. The employee meetings lasted 6 hours. They were not inspirational. They were angry. A machinist named Dale asked why workers should trust executives who had hidden the seriousness of the crisis. A shipping coordinator asked whether Rebecca would personally sign the no-closure commitment. She said yes. A supervisor wanted to know why Nathan still had a job. Nathan took the microphone himself. You're entitled to ask. He stood in front of nearly 600 employees on the first shift. I approved decisions that created pressure to make the numbers look better. I told myself I was protecting this plan. He looked toward Rosa. I also punished people who challenged those decisions. Nobody applauded. Nathan didn't ask them to. The board will determine my employment. Until then, I'm here to help repair what I helped damage. He handed the microphone back. That mattered more than an apology speech would have. Then Ethan stood. The atmosphere changed. Everyone knew who he was now. Some had seen his net worth estimates online. One employee shouted, "How much are you worth?" Laughter moved through the room. Ethan smiled. "More than I need." Another voice called, "That's not a number." "No, it." More laughter. Then someone else shouted, "Why were you working here?" The room quieted. Ethan looked at the blue lunchbox sitting on a folding chair. Because I forgot what it felt like to make something with people who knew me only by what I contributed that day. He paused. That sounds better than the full truth. People waited. The full truth is that I was lonely. No one laughed. My wife died 4 years ago. I had money, time, a daughter I loved more than anything, and no idea what to do with myself from 8 in the morning until school pit. Grace stood near the back beside Rebecca. Ethan saw her. So I came here. He looked around the factory. I did not tell you about my past because I wanted to be treated normally. Rosa watched him. That was selfish. The room remained quiet. I told myself your opinion of me should be based only on my work, but by hiding something this large, I decided what you were allowed to know while asking you to trust me. He looked toward Rosa. I'm sorry. She gave a tiny nod. Ethan continued. The plan you're voting on today is not mine. He turned toward the workers sitting behind him. It came from operators, maintenance technicians, finance, shipping, sales, quality inspectors, supervisors, executives, and people who disagreed with one another for most of the process. A few people smiled. It will still hurt. He did not soften that sentence. If it works, some jobs as they exist today will disappear. We believe voluntary departures, retirements, and retraining can reduce involuntary layoffs significantly. We cannot promise zero. A man near the front stood. So why should we vote yes? Ethan looked at him. You shouldn't, because I'm rich. A few heads turned. You shouldn't because Rebecca is CEO. You shouldn't because Nathan says the alternative is worse. He paused. You should vote yes only if you believe this gives you a better chance than the alternatives. And if we vote no, then it's no. You'll let the plant close. Ethan swallowed. If the only way to keep it open is for me to override the people who have to live with the decision, then I haven't learned very much. That answer frightened the board. It frightened Rebecca. It frightened Ethan most of all. Voting remained open until 7 that evening. Ethan refused to watch the live count. He sat outside beside the loading dock with Grace. She swung her legs from the concrete ledge. You're doing the nervous hand thing. What nervous hand thing? She imitated him, rubbing his thumb against his index finger. I don't do that. You're doing it now. He stopped. Grace smiled. What happens if they say no? I don't know. Good. Don't. He looked at her. Good. Good. You usually know everything. That is objectively untrue. It's spiritually true. He laughed. The door opened. Rosa came outside. Ethan stood. Well, she deliberately took her time. You hate this, don't you? Rosa. 71% yes. Ethan closed his eyes. Not relief exactly. Responsibility. Grace hugged him. Rosa walked over. 29% said no. I know it too. You need to remember them too. I will. No. They. She pointed at him. Don't billionaire answer me. Grace laughed. Rosa continued. Some of those people think your plan is going to destroy their jobs. Some don't trust Rebecca. Some definitely don't trust Nathan. Reasonable. And some don't trust you. Also reasonable. So when the newspapers call this the miracle billionaire rescue, Ethan grimaced. You tell them it wasn't unanimous. He nodded. I will. The board meeting began at 9 the next morning. 12 directors. Rebecca. D. Priya. D. Nathan. Out. 3 advisors. Ethan. The employee vote changed nothing legally. Several directors made that point immediately. 1. Warren Pike spoke first. We have fiduciary duties. Employee sentiment is relevant, but it cannot determine capital allocation. Rebecca answered calmly. Nobody said it does. Warren looked toward Ethan. Then explain why Mr. Mercer's guarantee depends on it. Ethan leaned forward. Because my money does. Warren's expression hardened. You are using financial leverage to force governance concessions. Yes. At least 3 people looked surprised by the answer. Ethan continued. You're free to reject them. And lose your guarantee. Yes. And potentially, the restructuring technology. Yes. Warren leaned back. That sounds remarkably like control for a man claiming he doesn't want control. Ethan paused. The point was valid. Rebecca watched him carefully. 6 months earlier, he would have dismantled the argument. Instead, he said, That's fair. Warren blinked. Ethan continued. So, change the structure. He pushed a document across the table. The software license will be irrevocable for 5 years if the restructuring is approved. The credit guarantee will be administered independently. I will have no board seat. Rebecca looked at him. That was new. Priya looked startled. Warren picked up the paper. You would provide $200 million of credit support without a board seat? Yes. Why? Because a board seat gives me more control than the company needs me to have. Nathan stared. Rebecca said quietly, Ethan. He looked at her. She understood what he was giving up. Not the money. Control. The one thing people like Ethan almost never surrendered. Warren read another section. You also assign Halcyon exclusive North American manufacturing use of your optimization platform for 5 years at cost. Yes. Our advisors estimate that right could be worth several $100 million. Possibly. And you want nothing. I want the plan implemented. That is not nothing. No, TA. Warren closed the document. I still believe closing this plant produces cleaner economics. Nathan spoke. Cleaner for whom? The board turned. Nathan had spent most of his career supporting arguments like Warren's. Now he stood. Closing saves more in year 1. It also triggers severance, relocation, supplier disruption, customer delays, warranty transfer risk, and the permanent loss of a skilled workforce. Warren said, We have modeled those costs. No, Nathan replied. We modeled dollars. Silence. Nathan looked toward Ethan. I spent a year treating people like production capacity because I was terrified of losing the plant. He turned back to the board. That nearly created a quality disaster. Rebecca watched him. Nathan continued. If we approve this plan, I recommend one additional condition. Warren sighed. Of course. Nathan took a breath. I resign as Chief Operating Officer. Rebecca's head turned. Nathan. He raised a hand. I'm not asking for forgiveness disguised as accountability. He looked around the table. I made decisions that damaged reporting integrity. If we want employees to believe the system is changing, the person who approved those decisions cannot remain in the same authority. Ethan stared at him. Nathan met his eyes. For months, they had been opponents. For weeks, reluctant collaborators. Now Ethan understood something he had not seen before. Nathan was not surrendering because Ethan had defeated him. He was doing the one thing he had spent months refusing to do, allowing the plant to survive without needing to be the man who saved it. Rebecca asked, What would you do? Nathan smiled faintly. I hear process technicians are hiring. A few people laughed. Even Warren. The board voted 3 hours later. 8 in favor. 4 against. The restructuring passed. There was no applause. No cinematic celebration. Rebecca signed documents. Priya called lenders. Lawyers began revising agreements. Nathan handed over his executive credentials. Ethan looked at his phone and saw 16 missed calls from reporters. Real life resumed almost immediately. The next 90 days were worse than the board meeting. Machines did not care about emotional breakthroughs. Software integrations failed. A retraining class had to be repeated because the first instructor spoke as though everyone already understood programming. 16 employees accepted voluntary retirement. 37 took severance. 19 changed departments. A warehouse consolidation ran 2 weeks late. One major customer threatened to cancel. Rebecca slept in her office twice. Priya stopped pretending instant coffee was coffee. Nathan remained during a transition period at reduced authority and spent much of it doing the humiliating work of documenting procedures he once assumed everyone understood. Ethan became famous inside the plant in the worst possible way. Reporters waited at gates. Business channels ran segments asking why a billionaire was working in a factory. An online article called him the blue-collar billionaire. Rosa printed it and crossed out blue-collar billionaire with a marker. Underneath she wrote, Ethan, who still owes inspection pie. He bought the pie. 46 slices. Grace came to the plant one Saturday. She watched Ethan train a group of employees on the new routing system. He did not stand at the front. Louise did. Ethan sat beside a maintenance technician who kept confusing two fields on the screen. He showed him once, then waited while the man did it himself. Grace smiled. Rebecca noticed. He's getting better, Grace said. AT software. Ain't not helping. Rebecca laughed. He has a long way to go. Very long. Across the room, Ethan looked up suspiciously. Grace waved. 6 months after the vote, Halcyon posted its first profitable quarter in over a year. First pass quality rose. Emergency freight fell by 40%. The plant employed fewer people than before. That truth remained. Not every ending was painless. 94 positions ultimately disappeared. Most were handled through retirement, voluntary severance, or transfers. 23 people were laid off. Ethan learned every name. He attended every transition meeting he was invited to. Some people thanked him. Some did not. One man told him, "Your plan saved the plant and still cost me my job. Both things can be true." Ethan carried that sentence longer than any praise. Halcyon paid for retraining, whether employees stayed or left. 12 months later, 14 of the 23 had found new work. 5 remained unemployed. 2 moved away. 2 chose not to report back. There was no perfect number that turned those lives into a victory. Rebecca refused to pretend otherwise. That became part of Halcyon's culture too. Bad numbers were allowed to remain bad numbers. 18 months after the day security took Ethan's badge, Rebecca found him where everything had started. E4. He wore safety glasses and a gray factory shirt. No executive title. No board seat. His badge now said, Process Systems, Special Projects. Rebecca hated the title. Ethan loved it. "You have a meeting," she said. "No." "Yes." With? May? That sounds avoidable." "It isn't." She handed him an envelope. Ethan opened it. Inside was his original termination letter. Across the front, Rebecca had written, "Void died. Very poor management decision." Ethan laughed. "You kept this." "I framed Nathan's copy." "He'll appreciate that." "He already has one." They walked toward the break room. Nathan no longer worked full-time at Halcyon. After his transition period ended, he began advising manufacturers on reporting culture and operational risk. The irony pleased Rosa enormously. Once a month he still visited. He and Ethan continued to argue. They simply did it without trying to destroy one another. Inside the break room, employees had gathered around a cake. Ethan stopped. "No." Grace appeared from behind Rebecca. "Yes." "What is this?" 2 years. "Since what?" Rosa held up the confiscated access badge from the day he was fired. Ethan stared. "How did you get that?" "Connections." "You work in inspection." "Exactly." Someone handed him the blue lunchbox. The original. Dented now. Paint worn thin again. The white star still visible. Grace had added something beneath it. Small letters. Ethan read them. "Ask first." He looked at her. Grace smiled. "Your new life philosophy." Rosa leaned over his shoulder. "What does it say?" Ethan closed the lid. "Nothing." Grace grabbed it. "Dad?" Everyone laughed. Rebecca took the lunchbox and read the words aloud. More laughter. Even Ethan joined. Then Rosa tapped a spoon against her cup. "I want to say something." The room quieted. Ethan immediately looked uncomfortable. Rosa ignored him. "When Ethan first came here, I thought he was quiet because he didn't have much to say." A few people laughed. "Then I thought he was quiet because he knew more than everybody." Ethan shook his head. "Then I discovered he was a billionaire, and for about 3 days I thought he was completely insane." Grace whispered, "Reasonable." Rosa smiled. "But that wasn't the important thing." She looked at Ethan. The important thing was that he learned. The room became still. So did Rebecca. Rebecca nodded. So did Nathan, eventually. Laughter darted. And so did we. Rosa looked around at the people beside her. For a long time, this company thought being strong meant hiding problems until somebody powerful had an answer. She shook her head. Turns out strength can also mean telling the truth early enough that ordinary people get to help. Ethan looked down at the lunchbox. He thought of Maya, of the first company, of hospital rooms where he had tried to turn fear into schedules because schedules could be controlled. He had once believed providing solutions was the greatest form of love. Maya had known better. Sometimes love meant staying while another person decided. Sometimes leadership meant giving away the final word. Sometimes being useful meant admitting that no amount of intelligence allowed you to live somebody else's consequence for them. Grace touched his arm. You okay? Yes. You look weird. Thank you. You're welcome. Rebecca handed Ethan a plastic knife. Cut the cake. He examined it. This is not going to produce equal portions. Rosa groaned. Please don't. We have 53 people. Ethan. The corner, geometry. Grace took the knife from him. I'll do it. He opened his mouth. He then stopped. Everyone waited. Grace smiled. Ask first. Ethan looked around the room. At Rosa.I. Rebecca.L. Louis.in. Priya.in. Workers who had stayed. Workers preparing to retire. People who had trusted him. People who had doubted him. People who still occasionally disagreed with decisions he had helped create. And he realized he no longer needed agreement to feel useful. He took one step back from the cake. Do you want help? Grace considered the question dramatically. No, det. Ethan nodded. Okay. She began cutting. The slices were wildly uneven. Ethan said nothing. Rebecca noticed the effort it required. She leaned toward him. That may be the bravest thing I've ever seen you do. Be quiet. Across the room, Rosa opened the blue lunchbox. Inside was an apple. She lifted it. You finally ate lunch. Ethan looked toward Grace. My compliance department became aggressive. Grace cut another crooked slice. Outside the break room windows, line 4 continued running. Not perfectly. Nothing worth keeping ever did. Machines stopped. People argued. Plans changed. Numbers disappointed. Problems arrived before anyone was ready. But now, when something looked wrong, the first question was no longer who would be blamed for saying it. And when someone suggested an answer, another question usually followed. Who has to live with it? 2 years earlier, Ethan Mercer had walked toward the factory exit carrying everything Halcyon believed mattered about him in one small cardboard box. His badge. His notebook. A photograph of his daughter. A chipped mug. Nobody around him knew he possessed enough money to change the future of the entire company. In the end, that turned out to be the least important thing he brought back. He brought questions. He brought skill. He brought mistakes. He brought the willingness to admit when someone earning a fraction of what he did understood a consequence better than he ever could. And eventually, he brought something money had never taught him to give. The final choice. Grace placed the ugliest slice of cake on a paper plate and handed it to him. Ethan examined it. You did this intentionally. Prove it. He smiled. Then, he sat beside the people he had once thought he needed to save, and ate it.